Well, one of our users in the US is having a little difficulty with snap and grid settings. I'll right click on the desktop and look at drafting settings, and the grid and snap are both on with the major grid 1 unit apart and 10 minor steps. And let's illustrate how that works. If I draw a line, you can see that the line can snap to that major grid point, and as I'm moving through here and down to that point and clicking, I'll get a line that's listed. It's 10 units long with 1 decimal foot interval between. So that means now our dimension style is standard. I'm going to change that to architectural, and then I'm going to apply a dimension from, I'd still prefer, even though the snap gets me there, to use the OSnap settings to find that, and we click in there, and there's our dimension, 10 foot 0 inches. Let's dimension this little line here, or we'll do it again. We'll right click and pick line, and we'll extend on, but we'll stop at the halfway point in between the major and minor grid points, and we'll dimension again. And again, I'll take the trouble to use OSnap to find these, and I'll come across like so. Notice, because the grid is on, it's a little difficult to get to the midpoint there. So what I will do is hit F9 and take the grid off, and now I can position my dimension exactly where I want it. Let me quickly turn view and background color to white. So there we have it. Now if the grid is on, let's turn it back on, and we want to bring in, let's imagine this is a very small 10 foot by 10 foot space. If we want to bring in, say, this symbol here, I can drag it in, but I can only put it down on that electronic grid, which is locating me in little groups of steps of 1 decimal feet. So I can copy it there, there, and there. And if we list any one of those, can you see the position X is -3 and position Y is 62. That's interesting to me. I'm not quite sure why that's showing minus. If I test this drawing, which has come from our user, and I'll type 0,0, can you see that we're operating way away from the 0 point? There's nothing wrong with that, but I had assumed that we were drawing near to 0, 0. So you've got an electronic grid that is controlling things. Now, in my view, that's making any design here too stilted, too controlled by the grid, and I want the grid off and the snap off most of the time. One other thing to watch is to make sure that under format and drawing units you have things at decimal, because in the US, when you're working in the US, draw in decimal feet, and then dimension using the USA architectural size. So if I wanted to draw a line from any arbitrary point, as I move in that direction, let me put polar on, I can say I want to draw a line 9 foot 9 inches, so that's 9.75, and in that direction exit, if I list that line, it's 9.75 decimal feet. But if I want to dimension it, I can again snap to that end point. Let me zoom in, and then snap to the end. And because my dimension style is set at architectural, in it goes as an architectural style of drafting.